Hello. So this will be like my first like proper YouTube video I'll be putting out on this channel. This channel is just basically gonna be like talking about things that I like, be it movies, games, TV shows, the whole everything. It's not gonna be super duper formatted. It's more so me reviewing things I like. Because if you don't like it, I don't see much point in watching it. People, there's the phrase that like, oh, but you gotta know the bad so you can appreciate the good, which is not true. I know food tastes good without eating shit. So I think it's one of those, silly phrases. So again, pretty much just gonna be talking about things that I like. Depending on the thing, I'll dive into depth and dive deep into the source or whatever. So for example, like here with Godzilla, I like it a lot, but it's not got a stupid amount of like stuff to really truly dig deep into, where opposed to another series I want to make a video on in the future called Jujutsu Kaisen. It has a ton of really deeper messaging. Well, not messaging, but deeper. It just goes deeper, especially when you start learning more about Buddhism. And once you learn more about that, then a lot of the characters' motivations, their actions, their phrases, their even down to the hand gestures they make, become much more significant. They add more to the character. But this video, I'm just going to be talking about Godzilla Minus One, the 2023 movie. My movie of the year for 2023 is personal bias, but it is personal bias because I really am a huge Godzilla fan. I haven't seen all of them. There's like 30 something. I've only seen about half. So I'm not an expert in Godzilla, but I'd say I know my shit. So yeah, this is my first YouTube video, so don't expect anything amazing. But yeah, hope you enjoy. There will also be spoilers in this video about Minus One. Due to the fact that I'll be talking about the characters, their growth, a lot of the messaging in the movie. A lot of times you can't talk about the messages without discussing plot points and how they affect characters and their motivations and So just a warning, there will be spoilers ahead. So the first thing I really want to talk about with Godzilla Minus One is Godzilla's design in this movie, because it's similar, well, it's familiar, but also different enough to feel really refreshing. In the old Godzilla movies back in the Showa era, which is from the 50s up to, I think it's the late 70s or early 80s, I can't exactly remember, but in the Showa era it was very much a dude in a costume, and there were times where you'd look at it and you go, wow, I can't even tell that's a dude in a costume, right? That's really cool, especially in like the 50s with Godzilla, the first one, the 1954, the original, the OG. That one, you, honest to God, can't really tell it's a guy in a costume, and it's really impressive, especially considering it's 1950s. But then as the movies go along, they become more focused towards children, they become more goofy, sillier, the budgets also start going down, and you can tell, especially in the budget-wise, because for example, in Son of Godzilla, he was hideous to look at. It's a great movie. It's really fun. Overhated within the Godzilla community itself, I find. But man, his design was bad. I'll show a picture of it and maybe a couple of clips on screen. But it was so bad. And it's not just Godzilla. There's this budget issues kind of affected. In Godzilla vs. Kong, the third Godzilla movie, interestingly enough, Kong looked probably the worst I've ever seen a kaiju costume ever. It was like not even like to the point where it's like, oh, okay, that's kind of noticeable, but I can get past it. It was so bad, so bad. Luckily, they haven't brought him back in the Showa era at least, and in the Japanese Godzilla movies. As you know, in the American Godzilla movie, there's Godzilla vs. Kong, which is great. But it's noticeable and it's bad. I mean, there's scenes in the Showa era where Godzilla will be hopping up and down. You know, he'd be throwing left, rights, pumping himself up to fight whatever monster he's been challenged by. And it's, again, it works for those movies, but it only works for those movies because you've already established that, oh, okay, so this is a silly Godzilla. Put that in any other Godzilla movie and it wouldn't work, obviously. You know, these aren't serious Godzilla movies. But this design really hammers home the fact that this is a monster. This is a creature that is here to destroy. It's not a fun, goofy thing, not a fun, goofy kids guy. It's a metaphor, and it's here to do some pretty bad shit. And I think the part of his design that really hammers home the really the evil parts about him is probably the parts of the design that deviate most from classical Godzilla, being his dorsal fins, his dorsal spine, the giant spikes on his back. Because in most other Godzilla movies, they're there, but they're like for example in the 2014 Godzilla movie, they're chunky. They're chunky. Other Godzilla movies, they're also kind of rounded, not how do I say? They look squishy, you know, and that's probably down to the strength of a costume. But they also wiggle and they wave in the wind as the Godzilla's moving in the old movies. They kind of woo along as he's like throwing a right hook or something. The other Godzilla movies, by other Godzilla movies, I mean the American Godzilla movies, as they go along, his spines become closer to what Minus One Godzilla's spines look like, but still very distinct. But with Minus One spines, they're violent. They're jagged. They're insanely spiky. They almost look unnatural. You know, they look like, instead of it being part of its body, you know, something that it evolved with, it really looks like something that mutated out of it, in the sense of like it's not natural, which does fit this version of Godzilla, because we see him at the beginning of the movie in the very first scene where he's much smaller. He's about much smaller, but he's still like 10 meters tall, which is still big for us, but Godzilla's normally 50, so this is significantly smaller. But in this one, he's still on two legs, but he's leaning forward more like a T-Rex or Spinosaurus, more like a dinosaur. And he's still as violent, but it's very obvious he's not as smart, or he isn't smart. He's an animal that attacks because it's either frightened or hungry or feels threatened in some way. It has these spikes in it, but they're much smaller, not nearly as prevalent as they are in his radiated design, which is good, because going to the radiated design, this version of Godzilla is radiated and affected by all this like nuclear testing done by America. And we see in the movie a nuclear bomb is dropped on top of Godzilla completely by accident. They had no idea he was there, but it drops on him, and instead of killing him, he is transformed into the Minus One Godzilla we know. It's tall, terrifying, and everything. And again, the spikes really nail this aspect of him. Another thing I really like is his head, because in other Godzilla movies, he's more lizard-like, and he's still lizard-like in this one. He has things that look like scales, but I'll get into that a bit later. But his head is more, I'd kind of call it like cat-like. He's got like that almost like button nose cats have. It's got like that kind of pointy out, no, or like snout, a bit. No, not puggish at all. I was gonna say puggish, but it's actually sticks out. But I'll show a picture to make it make sense. But like all the other Godzilla movies, or the recent ones, they didn't do this. They kept him. He's pretty much like a big lizard, and that's that. And the way he deviates from big lizard, aside from the face looking different, is his quote unquote scales. It's not actually scales. If you look closely, it's just skin that is like horrible, and it's lumpy and bumpy and looks sore to move in. And if I remember correctly, the director says that it's not actually scales, it's just what happened to its flesh. It just got insanely irradiated, hardened, and became, you know, its skin today. It's like armor, but it's like wearing an armor made out of uranium or something like that. So it's really a tough thing to look at. This is also, at least what of the Godzilla movies I've seen, this is far and away the angriest and the most hateful and spiteful that this Godzilla has ever been. There are so many scenes in this movie where, like, the things he does is done purely because he really just hates, like, humans. For example, I mean, there's a scene in, again, spoilers, but obviously, halfway through the movie in Ginza, I think it's pronounced. This is like the big set piece. You know, Godzilla tramples through a city, and there's scenes where he's walking around, and in previous movies he was lashing out in fear, or in Shin Godzilla he was a monster or an animal that mutated too far and was lashing out in pain. It didn't know what to do. But this Godzilla has gone to Ginza for the sole purpose to destroy it and to kill people, and that. Yeah, he's walking around the city, and at one point he picks up a trolley, like with on the rails things, and just chucks it into a train because he can. He's walking around in the like the city square, and he's just spinning around with his tail, and he's sweeping the undersides of buildings, completely knocking them over because he can. You know, it's not like he's there to kill one person because that one person wronged him. In his mind, I imagine, people wronged him, he thinks, as far as he knows, which they did, but people wronged him, and he's going to take it out on people. And the Ginza, and him attacking Ginza, does also lead to maybe my, like, second favorite part of the movie, and that's the all-iconic atomic breath. I mean, this atomic breath is the best, or one of the best, if not the best, atomic breath scene in all of Godzilla movies. I suppose Shin Godzilla, that atomic breath is above it, but this one is, I mean, this one is pure terror. You know, the Shin Godzilla one, you're watching it and you're going, whoa, this is so cool, look at the thing it's doing, oh my god, its jaw just opened up, oh my god, now the lasers are coming out of its back, that's cool. But this Godzilla's atomic breath is very to the point. It's built for blowing shit up, and it's exactly what it does. It also ties back to the spines. His spines, if you remember, if you've seen the movie, you'll remember they pop out and they go like along the tail. And the way I see it is they're bringing in maybe something from the air or something, but they pop up and he starts sucking in all of this air, and it's really horrifying to look at. And his spines, very much like how they glow in the American movies, where they slowly light up, going from the tail all the way to the head, but they glow and they glow and they go brighter and brighter and brighter until eventually they just slam down on his back and he belches forward this solid just laser. And it's not like a continuous laser, it's more like a blaster bolt from Star Wars. It just fires one off, and you can see it travel, And next thing you know, it's I mean it is just a nuclear explosion, which is fitting, you know. Godzilla being a metaphor about nuclear weapons and the dangers and everything like that. But what I do find interesting also, as a little side tidbit, they do use, I guess the best thing you'd call it is an impact frame. In anime, what it's used a lot in anime, but it's basically the screen goes dark and then bright, you know, as to really make I'll show it on screen, but to really make the impact feel heavy. And you know, this kills some characters, and this is probably a good time to lead into the characters. And I mean, probably the first character I should talk about is the main character, Koichi. Koichi Shikishima. He's a uh, retired, not really, but he's an ex kamikaze pilot. That when we first meet him, he's coming into a naval island, or an island that Japan is using as like a resupply base, or fixing it up, mechanics, something. You know, he's coming there, and he was on a mission to go suicide bomb or kamikaze, but you know, he cowered it out, but he didn't. He made the right choice, but he doesn't see it that way. He sees it as he failed his country. You know, he couldn't even do the one thing he was told, and that really hits him and hard, and he struggles with that throughout the movie. He doesn't see himself as like worthy of many good things because he sees himself as a failure because he didn't kill himself. And I think this really goes into also to show how Japan. I'm not going to speak on modern day Japan and not too much on ancient Japan, but they really just did not care about their soldiers. I mean, the kamikaze program is proof in of itself, you know. I mean, instead of going back and resupplying, no, crash into that ship. You'll be fine, you know. You'll die honorably. Your family will love you in memories. It's crazy, you know. And they say in the movie that they were like undersupplied. They were abandoned by the government even after the war. You know, so many soldiers had come back with PTSD and trauma and just all these awful things to live with, and the Japanese government was like, yeah, not our problem, though we lost, so I don't give a shit about you, actually. You guys are the reason we lost, nothing else. And and Koichi struggles with that. Also, it's not important to the movie, but the actor who plays Koichi also plays Koichi in the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 4 live action. So, you know, if I had a nickel for every time this actor played Koichi, I'd have 2 nickels, which is pretty funny, but it's not important. Another character, the character that kind of... he's struggling with this, and he gets home, and, oh, his parents are dead. Sucks to suck. And he's going through... Now he's kind of just going through the motions, and he's hardcore depressed, and, you know, that's when he meets the best character in the movie, Noriko. Noriko? Yep, her. And she's like his light. She brings him out of the bad times. I mean, they first meet. She's like she has a kid. It's not her kid. She just found it, and she just dumps this kid on her while she's being chased for stealing. And eventually they move, and you know, he looks after the kid, and they moved in together. Blah 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 blah. If you've seen the movie, you know. So then he moves in with her, or she moves in with him. They move in together, and it's really great because after the sheer horror of the first 15 minutes, because we have, you know, first 15 minutes is Godzilla, the infant Godzilla attack, and then we have to deal with like seeing Koichi in such a low point in his life. You know, it's really not a fun watch, but as I said, in comes Noriko, and it's really great because there's this really nice montage of showing both characters getting back up on their feet. You know, Koichi gets a job, the house is being rebuilt, the kid that was there is growing up really nicely, everything is finally going well, you know. And then that brings us to the very infamous boat scene where Koichi he finds a job, and basically what they do is they hop in a boat, him and I think it's 3 other people, they hop into a boat, and they go around. I don't know how far they go. They don't say, but the oceans of Japan, and their job is to get rid of old sea mines, because you can't have them anymore if you want trade to open. You can't have your ships blowing up every trip. And yeah, so their job is to paddle out, sail out, blow them up, and yeah, it's dangerous. Koichi himself says it's dangerous, but it pays well, which then also further shows the sheer desperation of needing to get back on their feet. Despite them getting back on their feet, it's still not ideal, and this job is the one they want. And this, yeah, as I said, leads into the boat scene, where this is probably the best scene in the movie, I think, but they're going out and they hear on the radio saying something along the lines of, hey, heads up, a giant monster of some kind has been sighted in your area. I can't remember, I'm going blank on this, but I can't remember if they say try and kill it or try run away. I'm pretty sure they say, I think they just say advise caution, and then the captain then goes and says, oh, let's kill it. You know, yeah, cool, good idea, dude. And they're all cocky, except for obviously Koichi, who clicks and he goes, oh shit, I know what this is, because he peers over the boat into the ocean and he sees these dead deep water fish bubble up to the top, and he knows this because, as we see in the beginning of the movie, this signifies the approaching of Godzilla, and eventually Godzilla arrives, and this is the first real time in the movie where we see what this Godzilla has radiated into, and it's horrifying. You know, the spikes, the face, especially the eyes. The eyes are take front stage or whatever, front stage of this scene, and they're terrifying. They have so much intent and distaste and hatred behind them that it really looks like it's really, I know it's like obviously, but it really feels like it's looking at you. You know, it's like piercing into your soul, and it's horrifying. You know, obviously, and then a whole chase comes through of Godzilla chasing them. They're shooting it with a machine gun that they use to blow up the bombs in the distance. Not working, because why would it? And then they get the idea, hey, still mines in the sea, or mines we've collected, we'll drop one, it'll eat it, and then blow it up. And lo and behold, it does. They drop the mine, it floats into the open Godzilla's mouth, they shoot it, and boom, it blows a solid chunk of his face off. And then Godzilla does something which, interesting, he's never done in another movie before, so this was really a horrifying twist to see realized, but he regenerates. And I think that's another reason I really like this Godzilla, is that he's really a mix of out of this world, you know, with the atomic breath and the healing factor. You know, he's kind of like, there's no way this thing exists. But then there are also parts of him that are like, yeah, that makes sense. That totally would exist in our world. You know, his proportions, these top-heavy, thick feet used to paddle. He looks buoyant. They can say he's buoyant in the movie. So, yeah, I mean, this boat scene is incredible, especially due to the fact that it's our introduction to the big boy. Another thing I love about this movie is the evolution of the theme. So, like, for example, in the beginning of the movie, as we follow Koichi, it's very much a message on, you know, on like the struggles of survivor's guilt and PTSD. Survivor's guilt in particular because, you know, he's the only survivor of the first initial attack Godzilla did against that island of where he landed after not killing himself, pretty much. He's the only one that survives, and there's a scene where he hops into his aircraft with cannons, well, not cannons, but machine guns on the front, and out of pure fear, which, you know, fair enough. It's getting attacked by a mini Godzilla, I'd shit myself too, but he doesn't. And then he goes on and he blames himself for the death of all of these mechanics, even though it's not even his fault, but he doesn't see it that way, and that's where the survivors guilt kicks in. It's his fault. He should have died with the rest of them. I mean, that's a line he says, that why does he deserve to live? You know, he failed his mission as a kamikaze pilot. Why should he be the one that's alive, and the mechanics who didn't fail anything die instead, in his place, instead of him? You know? And this is a thing he struggles with the whole movie, until he slowly meets more and more people who support him, who push him up, who carry him, put hands on his back or whatever, just help him. And this is where I think the themes of like banding together and like never being alone, and being alone is never a good thing, really, like, okay, well, not saying never, like, being alone is never a good thing, but you know what I mean, in the sense of like, someone's always there to help you, even when you think there isn't, there will be. And that slowly becomes more and more prevalent. At first it's with Noriko, but she also shares a similarly down expression or outlook, due to the fact that she was also affected pretty badly by the war. But they both as well, they meet, for like the people that Koichi works with, after the attack they meet more people who are like-minded, you know, people who are struggling from the after effects of war, people who were, you know, soldiers told to do awful things otherwise, and if they didn't do those awful things they'd just be killed, you know, and their family would have disgrace. And you know, they do these horrible things and then left by the government with these awful effects. And yeah, Koichi finds these other people who are like him, and who also want to get better, who want to live a full life without all of this suffering. And through this they find communion together. And this is I guess disguised, but not really, but this is shown as them banding together to take down Godzilla, which they eventually do in a very neat plan. It's the messaging is really great, and like I said a bit earlier, I love how it evolves, and it does it so effortlessly over the course of the movie, which is just incredibly paced. I think the only point of the movie where I was like had slight issues with the pacing was on like my fourth rewatch, and it was in that like montage where you know, Koichi and Noriko were rebuilding their life, and that's only because I've seen it like 4 times at that point. So if that's my only complaint with the pacing, then you should know. I mean, the pacing's just unbelievable. And keeping on in line with the aspects of the movie itself, the CGI in this movie is unbelievable. If I remember, they had $15 million budget, and then they go on to win Best VFX award. It's just incredible, and it's awe-inspiring. And I mean, the reason it works so well is because the director Takashi Yamazaki, he also used to be a visual effects guy within movies. You know, so where in normal movies you'd have the VFX team, then the VFX team would work for the or spread information, give information or whatever to the VFX head, and the VFX head would then go to someone, and they go to the director, and somewhere along the line the ideas can clash, and maybe ideas don't get transferred across properly, and so it just comes out not being the best. Or maybe the director just doesn't have a proper understanding on the toll and how difficult VFX is, so he just rushes them along because, oh, it's just computers, guys, you know, it should be easy. And this not the case with Godzilla Minus One, because Takashi Yamazaki, he used to be a VFX guy, like I said, and so instead of the VFX team reporting to someone to Takashi, they would report directly to Takashi, and then he would, you know, he'd be right there next to him helping them with the VFX. And I think it's a big reason on why the movie's VFX just are so good, because it's also it's not, I wouldn't say like it's total minimalism, considering there's a giant kaiju destroying Tokyo, but it never tries to do something that like it can't. I don't know, that does make sense, but they never get too ambitious. They keep a lot of the shots simple, which is really good. It's a key to success. You know, keep it simple. And I think the last thing I really want to talk about this movie is the music, because it's just like some of my personal favorites from the movie, because these scenes, it's music, and music and movies they always go together, and this movie proves it like the most, in the sense that movies just wouldn't work as well without music. Music enhances scenes within movies. Like, I can't remember, I think Jordan Peele said, the director of Get Out, he said the difference between horror and comedy is the music. So a few of my favorite pieces of music from the movie are Divine, Fear, Resolution, and finally Godzilla Suite, yep, number 3. So that will do it pretty much for everything I wanted to talk about Godzilla Minus One. Again, it's one of my personal favorite movies of all time. I think it does just about everything right, or everything it wants to do right, actually, like perfectly actually. If you haven't seen it, you gotta. It's, even if you're not a Godzilla fan, it's just an amazing movie on its own. Yeah, that's the video. Thanks for watching. Sorry if it was like really roughly made. It's my first one, but hopefully I'll get the hang of it pretty soon. And yeah, bye.